Who are the 16 deep sleepers you should be targeting from all the NFC teams here in the 2022 season, both in your fantasy football drafts and early on the waiver wire? It's time to break it down right here and right now as we begin another edition of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about fantasy football and the NFL for sportingnews.com. Everything you need to dominate your draft, my rookie rankings, sleeper bust picks, as well as our overall rankings, our positional tiered rankings there that you can check out to help you dominate the rest of your fantasy football drafts here all the way through kickoff of the NFL season next Thursday. A lot of good stuff still to talk about, and we're going to continue our look at some deep sleepers. These are not just players you can take late in your draft. This is talking about 13 round picks for later in a 12-team league, so 156 overall beyond that. Guys that you can throw out, names that you could be looking at depending on the depth of your league, and then guys that you're also going to have an early look at on the waiver wire and be ready to pounce on to help your rosters either in the starting lineup or for depth here not too long into the season. Maybe even later in the season, some of these players will help. So we looked at 16 AFC sleepers. We'll quickly correct that. Sonny Michel was released by the Dolphins there, so he got too deep for a sleeper. So we're going to pivot to Myles Gaskin there as a sleeper behind Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert. So quick correction from our AFC sleepers, and we'll get into the NFC sleepers here in a moment. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We're free and available to you on all platforms. I also have to tell you that this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a daily fantasy source made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your first entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. All right, let's dive right into what we do usually on the show when we're breaking down conference things is go alphabetical order. We'll start with the Arizona Cardinals, end with the Washington Commanders at the bottom of our final segment. Our first segment will hit 5 teams all the way through the Dallas Cowboys here. So let's look at the Arizona Cardinals. Where can we find a deep sleeper? Is Rondale Moore deep enough? Not quite. Is Antoine Wesley too deep? Yeah. So we're going to go in between here and go with A.J. Green at wide receiver. Now, Green picked up the slack a little bit when DeAndre Hopkins was out hurt last year. Now, Hopkins is missing the first 6 games. So I think Rondale Moore is going to be used as a hybrid player to help replace the value of Chase Edmonds and also Christian Kirk. I think you look at on the outside, A.J. Green is their top receiver now without Hopkins. So you'll see that there as the number 2 to Marquise Hollywood Brown. So top receiver, the familiarity there with Green and Brown. So Kyler Murray knows Brown from college, but Green is the guy that is the returning receiver here that has the most experience. He's slowed down a little bit. We know that, just like Julio Jones, his draft mate from 2011. But you look at Green, he was pretty valuable last year. Same thing with Zach Ertz. These 2 players were leaned on a lot. Marquise Hollywood Brown, we know, is a little bit hit or miss, big play dependent. They need some consistency in this passing game. Green and Ertz seem to be right there with what they need. I think Rondale Moore, unfortunately, we like the player, but his role is a bit ambiguous here between slot and extra running back touches there. So I don't know if there's going to be enough touches there, but Green should get some decent targets maybe right away in week 1 against the Chiefs, where you have some volume that you're going to look at there for Kyler Murray opposite Patrick Mahomes, and the secondary lost Charvarius Ward. So A.J. Green, if Zach Ertz is getting a lot of love here and Ertz a little bit banged up, Green has to get a little bit more attention as a early season streamer, at least until Hopkins can return here for the Cardinals. All right, let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. This team is just full of not too much that we're interested in. Kyle Pitts early, Drake London in the little bit of the middle of our drafts around a wide receiver 4. Pitts clearly top 3 tight end. Then we have to dig for sleepers. Tyler Algier is the guy that we're targeting, the BYU rookie running back. But what about good old Damian Williams? He's in this mix as well. Keep in mind, he's finished well for the Chiefs in the past. There as a super sub last year didn't quite work out for the Bears. It was about 1 week before Khalil Herbert kind of was the man that took over with David Montgomery on the shelf. So Damian Williams, however, still hanging on there in Atlanta. You have a Cordell Patterson probably going to get the lead work here early, but then look at the depth chart. Williams is number 2 right now ahead of Algier. Williams is also a very good receiving back and pass protector there, so that might get him on the field a little bit more than the rookie Algier. So Damon Williams, he's slowing down for sure. He's a little bit older, but he can be effective in a versatile role. And the Falcons, again, they were unpredictable last year. We thought it was going to be Mike Davis. We thought a little bit of Cordell Patterson. We've been on Algier. We thought of Kadri Allison last year, but it could always surprise us here with Arthur Smith. So Damon Williams has to be on the radar here, as this Falcons backfield could go in any number of different directions here with one Arthur Smith. Let's go to the Panthers. It's pretty clear who their number 1 receiver is. It's DJ Moore. Christian McCaffrey is going to be heavily involved, as usual, in the passing game. But who's the third target here to emerge? I mean, Robbie Anderson, whether you spell it with a Y or an I-E, questionable here. Remember how down he was on the Baker Mayfield move and moving away from Sam Darnold. Remember, Anderson and Darnold go back to the Jets connection, so he's probably perturbed about the quarterback change there. So is Mayfield going to hold it against him? Well, really he can, because you have Terrace Marshall behind Anderson, and he's the future. They're not going to stick with Anderson beyond this year. They need some help there at the receiving spot. They don't really use the tight ends all that much. So what do we say about targets that can have some value in fantasy football? Are they in the top 3 of their team? So Marshall just has to get ahead of Anderson here to be a key target behind McCaffrey and Moore. And again, it's a new quarterback. So Marshall also wasn't fully healthy last year. I think he has massive upside from LSU. So I think he should get more and more playing time as we go on over Robbie Anderson. So Terrace Marshall not being drafted, but I'm going to put him on the watch list. Should something happen to Moore, he's a plus pickup. If Anderson quickly fades, you can look at him as well for some wide receiver depth. Now, it's not going to be a high-volume passing team, so let's keep that in mind, that Marshall is more of a stash, and we'll wait and see what happens. But right now, I think you look at him more in the waiver wire as Anderson fades. You're not going to be drafting or investing in Anderson at all, so that also says that Marshall could usurp him at some point this season. All right, we go from Carolina to Chicago and the Bears. And the Bears still looking for that third target to emerge there. You have Dave Montgomery as a key backfield option here. Don't forget about that. But when you look downfield, you got Darnell Mooney, the clear number 1 wide receiver for this team. Cole Kmet is the next look I think that Justin Fields is going to give most of the time at tight end. That's why we're so high on Cole Kmet, finishing as a strong tight end 1, finding the end zone and having a key season, as well as Darnell Mooney with his talent, finishing more like a wide receiver 2 than a wide receiver 3 this season. We look at the rookie Velus Jones. He's there. But Byron Pringle, early in the offseason, there were reports that Pringle really clicked here with Justin Fields. He's going to be an inside-outside guy. I think you'll see some opportunities for him in the slot, some on the outside. Velus Jones is a pretty versatile too. But keep in mind, Jones is a rookie. He's also going to have return duties put on him here. Pringle is a pro's pro. He's a veteran. He's been around with the Chiefs. He always surprises us. Now, you're not going to get consistent forms of fantasy value from Pringle. It's going to be a lot of Mooney and Kmet in the passing game when they're not using Fields running or Montgomery running or Khalil Herbert. So, again, but deep in the draft, you can't ignore Pringle. He's back healthy. He missed some time in training camp and in the preseason. So, Byron Pringle, our deep sleeper for the Bears. Sticking with wide receivers, we're going to find one with the Cowboys. Now, this has been the pretty obvious one that we can look at for the Cowboys, but he's still not getting a lot of buzz and not really being drafted in a lot of leagues here. It's Jalen Tolbert, the rookie there. Now, what's happened is Michael Gallup is not ready for the start of the season. James Washington went down and Mark Cooper's gone. They need some help. And again, can Tolbert sneak into the top 3 targets on this team? We figure Ezekiel and Tony Pollard are going to be involved behind CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz, but if they're going to stretch the field, throw deep on the outside, they need some help. The Lamb can go inside, outside, line him up. Tolbert is a more traditional outside receiver. He might be the field stretcher. And keep in mind, they also lost Cedric Wilson from this offense. So a lot of vacated targets, especially with Gallup not in the mix. So Jalen Tolbert, the Cowboys sleeper, and watch out for him maybe having a bigger role early, and then we'll see if Gallup returns, and then he might not have the same value, but definitely a player on the watch list here. In an explosive passing game with the top quarterback and Dak Prescott, you've got to monitor here Jalen Tolbert. All right, we are down with the 5 of our deep sleepers in the NFC. We'll get to 11 more before the show's over in our next 2 segments. We'll hit the Detroit, Green Bay, the Rams, the Vikings, and Saints in our next segment here on Locked On Fantasy Football. I told you at the top that this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks Daily Fantasy, and it's easy to get in. I mean, you want to get in the action right away. So we have a Thursday night game there to open the season, Bills and Rams. So you might be looking for Cooper Kupp. What's his yardage total here? What is the touchdown total here for Allen Robinson, the newcomer that's supposed to be involved a lot in the red zone for the Rams? On the Chiefs side, who's going to be the leading receiver in this game? Who's going to be the leading rusher in this game? So is Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to hit his rushing total? How about Travis Kelce? Is he going to dominate the game with a lot of catches here? So you can look at all over the field with the most explosive offenses there. On the Bills side, Josh Allen at 300 yards. Is that a given against the Rams? Well, these are all the things that you can go after in the primetime games there on PrizePicks. And really what I like about PrizePicks, it's easy to play. You're not playing against someone else. You're playing against the number and the projection. That's all you have to do there to win, and you just have to find the right ones for you that you're the most comfortable with, and you will find a lot of good little props there to take advantage of. How does it work? It's pretty easy. You pick 2 to 5 players, and they will go score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, whether it's touchdown or yards there. You're going to just get that paid off there. No competing against other people. It's just you versus projections available. PrizePicks offers projection on any sport that you watch. This includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. But of course, we know we're so excited for the NFL season. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. It's safe and fast withdrawals as well when you win. And PrizePicks is currently operational in more than 30 states and Canada. It's very easy to get in on PrizePicks now. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports the easy way. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. So definitely take care of that and take advantage of that on PrizePicks. So again, you'll get 100% in instant deposit up to $100. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. It's very easy. All you have to do is enter that promo code Locked On. Again, don't forget, use the promo code Locked On at sign up for PrizePicks for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, it is time to continue the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football and break down 5 more teams in the NFC and their potential fantasy deep sleepers here for 2022. Exciting time on the network here. It's starting tomorrow. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Make sure you check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview. It's starting August 31st. That's right. What a way to end the month. An 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season starting this week. The local team of experts on the Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey NFL Insiders all combining into one Ultimate NFL Preview. Starting August 31st, search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's look at more deep sleepers, shall we? Let's dive right in. We're up to the Detroit Lions. Now, we're hearing a lot of buzz about DeAndre Swift because of his receiving ability. TJ Hawkinson, rebound season. You got DJ Chark in the mix. Amon-Ra St. Brown. People are drafting him. They're interested to see when Jameson Williams will be on the field. And we know the Lions have a very strong offensive line. Maybe you're inspired a little bit by Hard Knocks with what we've seen. But my deep sleeper on the Lions, who's tying all this together? It's Jared Goff. Who else is starting at quarterback for this team? Goff has got a lot of weapons. This was not a very good receiving core last year. St. Brown really stood out, especially after Hawkinson went down. But now you get the emergence of DJ Chark coming back from the injury there with the Jaguars last season that cut short his 2021. You got Jameson Williams, a field stretcher. Yeah, there's a little bit concerns there, but he can also make things happen after the catch on intermediate routes. So a lot of weaponry for here, Jared Goff, and the Lions defense still a work in progress here. That means the Lions are going to throw quite a bit. And that should be the case in week 1 against the Eagles, where the Eagles should move the ball rather easily on the Lions. Goff is going to have a lot of garbage time production here that you look at throwing the ball downfield and going in that direction and finding these different receivers. So there's just a lot to help Jared Goff put up some numbers here. And again, when your primary running back is a pass catcher, that helps your quarterback as well. So they didn't really draft anyone else. There's no competition here. Goff is the man. He's going to be well protected. So the numbers can be there, streaming in the right matchups, and chances to just be involved in shootouts there in trail mode for the Lions. That's going to happen here. For Jared Goff is my deep sleeper, and that's not the only quarterback, hint, hint, from his draft class that we're going to mention here on the show. All right, let's go to the Packers. Now, we've heard a lot of buzz about Allen Lazard. He's just shooting up draft boards here. Everyone's starting to settle in. He's the number one receiver by far, with Devontae Adams gone for the Packers there. And clearly, Aaron Rodgers is going to trust him quite a bit. We've heard about his interest in Sammy Watkins a little bit, the newcomer, the veteran there. Randall Cobb is old, reliable. You also have heard the crazy, crazy hype about Romeo Doubs, the rookie. But how about Christian Watson? This is making Christian Watson a better value as we go along. Now, I don't think Watson is going to contribute early, but do you really trust Sammy Watkins to hold up and be a key target here? Randall Cobb is ancient at this point. Lazard is going to need some help, and I think Dobbs is more of a big play threat and then maybe the Marquez Valdez-Scantling role. But Watson, keep in mind, they drafted Watson ahead of Dobbs for a reason. They liked him better. He had the better combine. When you draft two players at the same position, that's an easy assumption to make. They like both of their upsides here. But Watson, if he's on the mend here, watch out for him. He's going to have a key role. He's profiles really well in the Adams size and the speed mold here. So Christian Watson maybe not getting enough attention here. He's not a draftable guy at this point. Really, Dobbs after Lazard is the only guy that you can look at because you know he's guaranteed some kind of role on this team. Watson's still on the mend. He missed a lot of preseason key time here, so something to watch out there. But if everyone's drafting Dobbs, then you have to think about Watson here early on the watch list for the Packers. All right, sticking with wide receiver as we pivot to the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams, we know that Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, good 1-2 punch. Tyler Higbee getting some buzz there, but I still think this is going to be a more open passing game here as the running back issues persist here with Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson trying to stay healthy. Van Jefferson has missed quite a bit of preseason camp with a knee injury, but he's still their number 3 receiver here. Again, Allen Robinson has had a major injury in his past. He's getting a little older. So is Cooper Kupp. He's getting older and slow down. So Van Jefferson slides into one of the top 2 receiving roles here. Watch out. I think he's one of those rare wide receiver handcuffs that we feel really good about. He's got some time now in this offense to learn it. So if Kupp or Robinson went down, he'd be a guy that you could quickly pivot to and take advantage of with Matthew Stafford throwing him the ball and having to step into a prominent number 2 role for a very good passing attack. All right, let's go to the Vikings. It was hard to find some deep sleepers. KJ Osborne, you guys are on him quite a bit late. Irv Smith Jr. So we're going to go with the Vikings defense. And what are we looking for? We talked about this with another purple team, the Ravens, as we broke down the AFC sleepers. A team that can make plays. Where are the playmakers to get the sacks and takeaways to give you the fantasy football points you're looking for? Well, you got Danielle Hunter, you got Zadarius Smith, you got Patrick Peterson, known for making a lot of big plays in the secondary. You also have Harrison Smith, long time doing it, making the big plays. And I think they're going to have a little bit more aggressive attack mode. They've been in some zone defensing mode there with Mike Zimmer. I think you'll see a little bit more attacking. The offense is going to be aggressive. They'll have chances to tee off in certain games here for Kevin O'Connell. So Vikings D, totally free. I wouldn't play them in week 1 against the Packers. You got to pick your spots, but they do get the Lions and Bears on their schedule. So again, the Vikings D, Mike Zimmer is a tough influence to lose, but I think they'll be in a good spot here in 2022. All right, the final team we'll talk about in this segment. We have 6 more. We're going to save those for last in our final segment here, Deep Sleepers, from the New York Giants to the Washington Commanders. Before we get to New York, we have to go to New Orleans and look at Marquez Callaway. So why is Marquez Callaway on this list? Well, Jarvis Landry's old. He's breaking down. He's had a lot of injuries here. Michael Thomas, we know, soft tissue, ankle, hamstring. And another thing we know about Marquez Callaway, he fits in with what they want to do a little bit. Stretch the field, throw downfield. That's why they got Chris Olave in the draft in the first round. So it could really end up Olave and Callaway seeing a lot of work here. Remember that Thomas, they like to use in the slot as well as Landry. So one of those guys could be fading out of the top 3 and 11 personnel. It would not surprise me at all, whether it's injury, ineffectiveness, age, something is going to happen there. But we know Jameis Winston really likes Marquez Callaway. He's in a loaded, crowded space right now, but he's at least operating ahead of Traquan Smith. You don't really have to worry about too much anything at tight end with Taysom Hill buried there in the depth chart behind Adam Troutman. So Marquez Callaway is someone I'm going to watch early in the season to see if the attrition in the Saints wide receiver core focused on Thomas and Landry open it up for totally a new look outside attack with Olave and Callaway. All right, so there takes care of 5 more sleepers. We got 6 more to save for our final segment here in the show. So excited about that for you on Locked On Fantasy Football. So good stuff all around here. And I do, however, have to tell you a very important message from the NHTSA. Are you one of those people who thinks it's okay to drive stoned? What's the worst that can happen? You end up driving below the speed limit? It's no big deal, right? Wrong. The truth is your reaction times slow way down when you're high. You're not only putting yourself in danger, but everyone else around you. Talk about a buzzkill. Stop kidding yourself. It's not okay to drive high. If you've been using marijuana in any form, do not get behind the wheel. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI. And we thank the NHTSA for this very important message. All right, it is time to close the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football here as we look at our NFC Deep Sleepers for 2022 as it stands as we get closer to the kickoff of the season here. A little bit more than a week away, we'll have the Bills and Rams in action with real fantasy scoring there for you. The Giants, speaking of the Bills, they inherited the former Bills offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll. He's now there with Mike Kafka. The one thing that we know about the Giants offense, some people are like, oh, why is Kenny Golladay kind of being undervalued there? Shouldn't Kadarius Toney get a little bit more love? What about Sterling Shepard? We're not sure, but the one guy that has been consistently getting the attention is Wan'Dale Robinson, the do-everything kind of moving around player from Kentucky. Now, Wan'Dale should remind offensive coordinator Mike Kafka a little bit of a young Tyreek Hill. You have Brian Daboll, who's worked with different weapons there, including Isaiah McKenzie in Buffalo. So they just want to get Wan'Dale Robinson the ball as much as possible in open field, quick spots here, maybe a little bit of running game wrinkle, a little bit of hybrid role here for Wan'Dale Robinson. So look, Kadarius Toney is limited here with the Daniel Jones situation. Kenny Golladay just has looked terrible here in camp. Look, I get it. In theory, one of these guys can step up, but the guy that I've heard the most about from the Giants beat and buzzing the most is the rookie Wan'Dale Robinson. So look, other people can try to invest in other Giants receivers. You really don't want a lot of shares of this offense with Golladay or Toney or Shepard. So you might as well go with the cheaper one there and Wan'Dale Robinson and see what his upside can be as a rookie here in 2022. All right, we go from the New York Giants to another team in the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles. We have the Eagles' backfield here is something we should target. It's too late to go with Kenneth Gainwell. He's getting a lot of buzz there as Miles Sanders has faded in the preseason even more. The coaching staff loves Gainwell, but we got to go deeper in this backfield, and we're going to Boston Scott. Remember his key role last year filling in? I could see a committee developing between Scott being the surprise power back and Gainwell being the receiving back if they continue to fade Sanders here. And Sanders is off hurt. And remember, they don't have Jordan Howard anymore. So it could be a key role for Boston Scott. He had a lot of touchdown games last year that helped his value. Again, he was once pumped up as a kind of Darren Sproles light because he's played for the Saints and Eagles, but he's a different type of runner now. I think those pass catching snaps in protection and receiving are going to go more to Gainwell, but I could even see a scenario where Boston Scott sees some key touches here to Sanders go down again. He was very helpful to me in a few games for sure last year as I streamed him. I was hurting in the backfield. So another guy I'm looking at early on the waiver wire. The Eagles obviously like him here as their third back to keep around. All right, let's go to the 49ers. Look, it's a post-hype sleeper thing. We're going post-hype deep sleeper here that we're going to look at. So Trey Sermon was hyped as the runner of choice for the 49ers as a rookie, but he didn't look in camp. He was limited. The coaching staff put him in the doghouse. Instead, they took a shine to Elijah Mitchell, who's now going to open the season as the featured back. But what else is behind him? They have a lot of different guys. They got Justin Mason, the undrafted kid that has made JaMychal Hasty expendable. You still have Jeff Wilson Jr. in the mix. You have Tyrion Davis-Price, the rookie from LSU. So a lot of bodies there. But Trey Sermon has looked pretty good here. I think he's bought in, maybe a little bit pushed and motivated by last season's disappointment. So Trey Sermon, good fit for this system. Elijah Mitchell, slight of build, Sermon a little bit bigger. So we're going to look at this. And what do we know? We've preached it all off-season long here. They've had 5 leading rushers in 5 years with Kyle Shanahan. So things are expected to change. That's what you should expect from the 49ers backfield. Expect the unexpected. That's what happened last year for sure with Mitchell, and it's happened before with Raheem Mostert. It's just different guys and different things happen here with the 49ers because Kyle Shanahan is fickle. He wants to be effective with his rushing attack. He's such a good system with his blocking that you can plug and play a lot of players there. It's all about effort, cutback, and determination and just hitting the holes and reading the blocks well. So Trey Sermon may have learned his lesson last year, so we're going to watch him on the radar, especially if Elijah Mitchell struggles or gets hurt here in 2022. For the Seahawks, we know Rashad Penny is banged up a little bit. He should start early as the key number 1. We've heard about Ken Walker maybe being healthy, the rookie out of Michigan State. So it's going to be a tough backfield to navigate here. But Penny and Walker, if Walker has to take a little extra time, Penny just goes down again. You have Travis Homer. He's been in the dedicated receiving role quite a bit. I don't love these backs for fantasy except in half or full point PPR, but he's clearly the receiving back. There's also DJ Dallas, so you can look at him as well. But I think the Seahawks backfield also could be a bit unpredictable. Right now, I would lean toward Walker at some point taking over here, but I don't think they want to wear him down too much. So Travis Homer could have a little bit of role here should Walker remain banged up and you don't have Rashad Penny here in the mix. So Homer right now 3rd on the depth chart ahead of DJ Dallas, who's more of a swing backup here for the Seahawks, and we'll see how that plays out. The Buccaneers, this one's easy. We've been on it quite a bit. Cameron Brate is still very low in the rankings. Still a guy we're looking at. There are a lot of mouths to feed here, especially when Chris Godwin comes back, between Mike Evans and Godwin and Russell Gage and Julio Jones and all those receivers. And I'm sure things will change here as some of them get cut and sorted out here. But Cameron Brate, a good red zone force. I don't think K-Dot and the rookie's quite ready yet. Kyle Rudolph is kind of faded there, the former Viking. So Cameron Brate still has some value. It's touchdown dependent. He's going to get a lot of red zone looks, and that's where a lot of his production is going to come with Tom Brady. He could have 6 or 7 touchdowns, a very cheap tight end right now, buried in the tight end 2s and 3s here in most situations. Last but not least, we're going to the Washington Commanders here, and they have a sleeper that is a big name. And we told you about Jared Goff, and there's going to be another quarterback from that draft class on the list. Well, let's not hold the suspense any longer. It is Carson Wentz. Now, Wentz was a borderline QB1 for the Colts last year. I know the reality perception was he was terrible. And he was terrible late in the season from a reality perspective. He didn't protect the ball well, made some mistakes, was inefficient throwing downfield, but he had some very decent numbers there with his passing and running for the Colts. So look at the Commanders. Taylor Heineke had his moments last year in this offense. The Commanders, I think, defense is going to be terrible. Chase Young is hurting. Their secondary is not very good with William Jackson and others there. So I think the Commanders are going to have to put the ball up quite a bit. They do have enough weapons here if Logan Thomas can be healthy, but just with Terry McLaurin and the rookie Jahan Dotson, maybe Curtis Samuel contributes a little bit more. J.D. McKissick getting some checkdowns there. Wentz can also run a little bit here. So there's going to be some garbage possibilities for Wentz as well. So the Commanders and the offensive line is decent. I wouldn't put it in the plus category here. They're losing Brandon Sheriff. But when you look at it overall, Commanders have some weapons, going to be behind in some games. Wentz is going to get it down with some volume, some running there. And again, not an inspiring reality quarterback, but in terms of fantasy quarterback, he has a toolbox to put up some numbers here in a different offense's 3rd team here in as many seasons. Carson Wentz. Your final NFC deep sleeper. He's going around QB 24 to 28 in that range. So that's where you can get him. He's just an afterthought in drafts, except for Superflex and 2 QB leagues. But in the regular 1-star QB league, he's a deep sleeper. And if you're playing the streaming game, Carson Wentz's name is going to pop up quite a bit here as long as he's healthy and has the starting job in Washington over Sam Howell and others. All right, there you have it. There's a breakdown of your NFC deep sleepers for 2022. So these are guys you can target late in your fantasy football drafts or just have them on your watch list here for the waiver wire here not too long in the season, especially if injuries do occur. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. Now make Locked On Dynasty your second listen. What a great team of experts there, including a former NFL scout, Matt Williamson. You also have Ryan McDowell, and Marcus and Kate, a great duo as well. So good group of hosts bringing their heads together for Locked On Dynasty to give you a little bit different perspective on fantasy football. So we appreciate them. Check out all our rankings up there on social media. Check out all the shows. Listen to us all, and you'll dominate your fantasy football drafts and be good to go all throughout the season. 5 days a week, we're bringing it to you here at Ultimate Fantasy Football Combination. 1-2 punch, Locked On Fantasy Football, Locked On Dynasty for you. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Have a great day, and we'll check you out with more fantasy football final draft prep on the next show.